I've been making YouTube videos for almost a decade now, and in that span of time, I've dedicated probably an unhealthy amount of it trying to crack one of the biggest mysteries in Bayverse Transformers lore, Devastator. In fact, one of the earliest videos I've ever made, my 9th video back in 2018, when my channel was still called Trans Theories, was all about the Constructicons people did not realize were a part of Devastator. And then, a year later, I uploaded what would become my third most viewed video on the channel, sitting at almost 2 million views. That video set the record straight. There weren't 7 or 8 robots like the movie and the toys made you believe. There were 10 Constructicons that formed into Devastator. That was the fact that stuck for years. And earlier this year, I thought I had finally closed the book on Devastator. I spent over a month working on what I called my love letter to this character, the complete production history of how ILM built him, how the designs evolved, and how chaotic the whole process really was. That video was supposed to be my final word on Devastator and his components, but then something happened. While I was editing that video, scrubbing through every frame, I noticed something very strange. There's this one shot, what I call the calm before the chaos. It's a shot every Transformers fan has seen 1,000 times. I've seen it more times than I can count. But this time, I saw something I'd never noticed before. Hidden in plain sight underneath Overload's trailer were the wheels of another vehicle. Another Constructicon? At first I thought it was Payload, since those tires look very similar to his. But it couldn't be, since he's clearly visible on the hill to the right. The only other Constructicons with similar wheels were Scrapper and Longhaul. However, it could not be Scrapper since he's literally in the middle of the shot. But as for Longhaul, his hubcaps are green. These caps are yellow. That's when it hit me. This had to be another Constructicon, one we've never accounted for. So I did what any sane person would do. I scrubbed through the entire combination sequence frame by frame, looking for any sign of this vehicle, but it never shows up again. It's only visible for 32 frames, just over a second and then gone. Never seen before, never seen after, just buried in the background of one of the most iconic shots in the movie. At this point, there was nothing left in the film to analyze. That 1-second glimpse was all there was. So the only thing I could do was to look outside the film. While I wasn't able to find anything on this guy in the special features DVD, I was able to find something very fascinating while combing over some set photos. As you guys can see in this image, most of the familiar faces are here: Mixmaster, Payload, Scrapper, Longhaul, and Skipjack. But what really caught my attention were the vehicles that don't match up with anything we've seen in Revenge of the Fallen. First off, this crane behind Scrapper. It immediately stood out to me because there is already a crane Constructicon in the film, Hightower. He transforms into a massive Kobelco CK2500 truss crane and forms part of Devastator's left arm. However, the crane in this set photo is a completely different model. So then this begs the question, why is this crane here parked alongside the rest of the Constructicons? Well, the answer is actually quite simple. This crane was not meant to be a transformer at all. It was actually part of the production equipment used during filming. Specifically, it was the crane used to lift and maneuver the van that Devastator eats. In fact, thanks to this set photo, we know that the production team had access to 2 of these cranes, and you can see them sitting right behind Hightower during filming. Now, while the mystery of the crane was easy to solve, the other 3 vehicles in this photo are not so simple. For starters, we have what appears to be another yellow dump truck, which I have labeled as Second Payload, since it looks exactly like him. Now, whether or not this dump truck is an exact copy of Payload's prop vehicle, or slightly different, is impossible to say, due to the quality of the photo and the lack of production information. Regardless of whether it's the same model or not, its presence here raises questions. The same thing goes for the front end loader parked right behind Mixmaster, which I have labeled as Second Scrapper. Now, we know this vehicle is not Scrapper since he is a Caterpillar 992D, and that vehicle is sitting clearly in the bottom left corner of this collage. Based on the shape of the cabin, this second Scrapper is a different make and model, and appears to be smaller than Scrapper's Cat 992D. Lastly, this leaves us with one more oddity, the unknown bucket. Unfortunately, we have no idea what construction vehicle this is supposed to be, since we have no clear image of it. But if I have to guess based on the way the bucket is shaped, it appears to be another front-end loader or a bulldozer. So now we're left with 3 vehicles: a dump truck that is very similar to Payload, a smaller front-end loader, and potentially another front-end loader or bulldozer. Which leads to the obvious question, why were they on set? Well, considering the case of the crane, the most straightforward explanation is that maybe these extra vehicles were brought in to help the production team. As for how exactly they were used, I can't say for certain. They might have been used to move equipment around the set, clearing debris between takes, or supporting practical stunts like the van scene we talked about earlier. But here's the thing. While it's possible that these vehicles were brought in just to help the crew, we can't ignore the fact that one of them might have accidentally or intentionally slipped into the film itself. We know that the wheels visible under Overload's trailer don't match any of the known Constructicons, and when we look back at these set photos, there are these 3 extra vehicles that aren't accounted for anywhere else in the film. Unfortunately, the photos don't show us the tires of any of these machines, so we can't definitively prove which one it was or if it even was one of them. But the fact remains, one of them could have very well been the vehicle we briefly see in that shot. And that alone changes everything that we thought we knew about how many Constructicons unite to form Devastator. If I were to put money on which vehicle it likely was, as much as I want it to be the front-end loader so we can canonize the Constructicon nurse as being a part of the team, if you look closely for just a few frames, you can see what appears to be a yellow bar positioned just in front of the tires, and based on the angle and color, it looks a lot like the support beam on the front of a dump truck. So with all that said, in my professional opinion, I believe that the yellow dump truck that we see in these behind-the-scenes set photos is in fact the mystery vehicle briefly seen beneath Overload's trailer. As for what part of Devastator's body he forms, I think it would be reasonable to say that he helps make up the right arm of Devastator. The reason I believe this is because if we look at where this dump truck's yellow parts could realistically end up on Devastator, it would either be on the left leg, right arm, or left arm. Since Scrap Metal, Hightower, and Buckethead make up the left arm, a 4th Constructicon making up that limb is highly unlikely. The same thing goes for the left leg, since Payload and Skipjack have that limb covered. This leaves us with the right arm, and honestly it's the most realistic place for this dump truck to end up, since Scrapper making up the entirety of the right arm always felt, to me at least, a little weird, when his left arm is composed of 3 bots. And so with that said, this is practically everything we know about this guy outside of a name. And since Hasbro is probably never going to acknowledge or designate this Constructicon anytime soon, I'll take it upon myself to give this unknown Constructicon a name. Since he looks identical to Payload, at least in vehicle mode, how about we designate this guy as Wide Load? Not only does it fit with the Constructicon naming style, let's be honest, he's literally the extra load nobody realized was there, hiding in the background for over 15 years. At the end of the day, whether Wide Load was intentionally meant to be a part of Devastator or simply made his way on the set by circumstance, the fact remains, he's there. Meaning that there weren't just 10 Constructicons that formed into Devastator, there were 11 the whole time. Thanks for watching, and as always, keep on theorizing.